Welcome to this episode of the $1 Million Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of $1 Million Mastermind. All right, let's talk about bullies, bullying, and bully tactics. How do winners deal with these things? And of course, it happens to everybody from the time you're born to the time you die. And I'm sure you have stories of that yourself. But, it's just one of the things you have to deal with. And no matter how celebrated you might be in life, you still are going to have critics. And you're going to have people that don't agree with you. And so it's good if you have your mind kind of clear about that. Even Winston Churchill used to say, if they stopped the car for every dog that was barking on the side of the road, he would never get to Parliament on time. And so you always have critics. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm talking about themes that come up in conversations from time to time with winners and just kind of bringing them out in the spotlight by themselves because they need to be, you can kind of forget, you can get rusty on these things. And so that's why I like reviewing these from time to time. But bullying can be, it's good that you recognize them. That's the whole thing. Like when someone is making you uncomfortable and it's like they're pushing you. And so it can be physical, but usually it's verbal, it's mental. It could be criticism, it could be threatening, it could be passive aggressive. They seem so friendly. The words didn't sound that bad. They didn't make any threatening gestures, but really condescending, really putting you down, really disguising that stuff. And that passive-aggressive thing can be the toughest because you don't recognize it. You don't realize what they're doing. And, you deal with it at all ages. Children can be cruel to each other. That's what a lot of this bullying is. It's cruel. Teenagers can be cruel. Teachers are cruel. Bosses are cruel. Spouses are cruel. Parents are cruel. But, kids can bully parents too. And it's amazing when the little suckers, from the time they stand up and they can talk with their rebellion, and they're challenging their parents in unbelievably creative ways you could never imagine. But, it's a tactic that you have to deal with from all sources. Anybody can be cruel. Anybody can say or do cruel things. But usually when these things happen, it's really they're trying to bully you into doing something is wrong or you don't want to do. And society in general bullies us into conforming. Hey, listen, there's a lot of information online, but there aren't a lot of people who have actually done something. In my case, I've actually built a successful business that's accrued over $5 billion in assets under management and has done well even during trying times. Now, if you want to know exactly how I've done this, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now. I've compressed a decade of learning into 5 short weeks just for those of you who want to give yourself an incredible advantage and are tired of waiting and watching others move up. Do I hear an amen? Especially for the teenagers in the social media. This is the right way to act, think, dress, behave. If you're not wearing these clothes, if you're not getting these toys for your kids, if they don't get these tennis shoes, the new Michael Jordans, or they don't get the certain popular toy, you didn't deliver for your kids. Parents running all over trying to find that Nintendo game, that video game or something or player that all the popular kids have. And so, you're a bad parent if you can't get that for your kids. So bullying goes on all the time. And if you don't fall in line, somehow you're bad, and then you need to be shunned. You need to be punished. You need to be ignored. You need to be pushed outside of the group. And people are vulnerable to that. I mean, billionaires are vulnerable to that. People that are exalted heroes in all walks of life, you think, oh, they're immune from that. No, because they have feelings. They've got emotions. Everybody wants to be liked to some extent, and everybody's aware of how other people are treating them. So how do you deal with that stuff? Well, there's a lot of answers and techniques, and I can't get into that right now. I'm just wanting to kind of turn the light bulb on about the awareness, because when it happens, it's easier to deal with if you know what it is. And so, how to deal with it, leave the situation if you can. Ignore it if you can. If it gets a little more serious, cut them out of your life if you can. Move on. Confront them. If you can figure out how to do it in the right kind of way that won't inflame the situation, and you feel like there's some receptivity on their side, confront them. Bring it up. Say, wait a minute. You trying to bully me into this thing? Wait a minute. I'm on a path. I believe it's right. And now I'm getting all this static from you. So there's too many things to talk about, all the different ways you can respond. I may talk about that later. Go look up a book on it. I'm sure people have written hundreds of books on it. But the bottom line is, let's get to the bottom line. Winners deal with the bottom line. Winners don't necessarily have to have 800 techniques for everything, but they do know how to connect dots. And the dot you need to connect is, if you're on track for something, you're going through your life, you got your mind made up, you're moving in a certain direction, and someone or something is trying to bully you out of there, you've got to deal with it. You got to stand up for yourself, because it's interference. It's distraction from what you need to be doing. They're disrupting you from moving forward. And learn to recognize it for what it is. Verbal bullying is the thing that gets past the gatekeeper in our mind, because we don't realize, wait a minute, that's bullying. And when you can recognize it for what it is, it makes it easier for you to deal with it. And, if possible, ignore them. They'll always be around. Get a thick skin. Don't be paranoid. I mean, we all stub our own toes in life. When we get pain from other people, created pain for us, well, occasionally in our lives, if you're like most people, at least once you'll close the door on your hand, or you'll stub your toe, your little toe or your big toe, walking around the house. You'll cut yourself or something. We create pain for ourselves. So if someone else creates pain for you, don't go overboard. Learn to cut them some slack, because, but if they're doing it all the time, no, you've got to draw the line. And you might take a second and say, is there a valid point in that? Do I necessarily have to take that as an insult and respond, with anger, and something? How dare they? Maybe they noticed something I needed to be aware of. And then, if you can, learn from it. But the main thing, deal with it one way or another. Keep moving forward, focusing on the things you need to be getting done so you can get the things you want to get. You got to stay on track doing what you need to do to get what you want out of life. And I'm not just talking about selfish things for yourself, but things that you want to do for others. I mean, you got to keep moving. And bullying can come in a lot of forms. It can be as gentle as a breeze, or it can be solid as a ton of bricks falling on your head. Regardless, when it comes, recognize it, deal with it. And deal with it might be just brushing it off. But regardless of how you deal with it and keep moving on. That's all I want to say about bullying right now. But just don't let yourself to be bullied off track from where you want to go. If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelemwinning.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.